Hello, welcome to the Back of the Nest match review, poor report review. Oh, that was tough. That was a tough watch today. Fantastic end to the game. Anyway, I'm Chris Ambling. If you didn't know, you should probably know, but you might not. It happens. And with me, Patrick O'Connor. Hi, Patrick.
Hambo, how are you today? Tough watch, but we got a point. I'll take it.
Did and it's hard not to be sort of overcome with the delight of. Sorry, my cats are doing weird things next to me. Just if there's any noise, it's the cats, not me. Um, yeah, it's hard not to kind of focus on the delight of seeing França come off the bench and try so hard. And
Loved it.
you and
Yeah.
I were talking just before we went live. It's like, oh my god, he's overworking, he's overtrying. Please
Yeah.
just relax and let it happen. And he did, and scored a lovely goal. And it wasn't an easy finish. And I'm so happy for him, and I know you are as well.
Yeah, by far the highlight of the match. Just had a baby a week or so ago. Just really happy
França,
for him. I
not
think
not you. It was França,
not
right?
me. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I'm not.
yeah,
I'm way past having babies. Thank you.
yeah.
Love my two kids, by the way. Thank you, my wife. But yeah, and just about that, his first league appearance, he said, since last season, obviously, and to come on, you're right. He tried way too hard, and he just wanted to let something happen, and then obviously a great cross by Lerma, by the way, and a great finish. And again, overall poor performance, and I think they were definitely leggy from the the Fulham match. But I'll listen. Southampton wanted to win, obviously, because they're so bad and they really work hard. But I'm just glad to get the point. And I'll just take the point and go.
Indeed. Well, there's a fair few things to talk about, and what for a while I was thinking, how are we going to get any kind of a show out of this? But there's definitely some things to focus on, and it feels a lot easier to do that now. We got away with a point, but we did get away with it. But just to kind of flag it up, going to be a little bit of a shorter show. It's obviously late here. I've got to be up at 5 in the morning, Patrick, to go to the gym. Yeah, that's real. That's my life now, and
There you
I know
go.
you've got some commitments as well. So we'll rattle through this quickly. If we get time for some guests after we've given you our wisdom, we'll let you know, and we'll chat the link up. But yeah, otherwise, let's get cracking and talking about it. You've sort of hinted at some of the reasons that maybe it wasn't the best performance. But let's go right back to the start of the game. Obviously the one change, we knew Richards was out and Klein came in, and we'll talk Kleiny a little bit later on. But I think pretty pivotal moment right at the start of the game. Mateta picks up the ball, and it's the Mateta we know and love. Drive, great dual turn. Made Bednarak look like the player he is. Let's face it, and drives at goal, central position, and just drills it. And I think it's in all the way. I'm just like, oh my god, like what a start. Underside of the bar, first look, I think, did that bounce back in? It didn't. It go anywhere near. That shows how poor my judgment is. But I was excited. I thought, what a great start to the game. And I genuinely feel right now that ball goes in, that shot, you know, half a centimeter lower probably does go in off the underside of the bar, and we just stroll to 3 points, I think. And unfortunately, it didn't.
No, you're right. Really great play by Mateta to drive there, and you're right. And games are weird that way. Like I mean, we mentioned during the preview show that Southampton had nothing to play for. That all they care about, because the manager mentions it, is to breaking that 11-point record that Derby set way back, and they just came out with a lot of effort. But again, if we score that early goal, you just know what's going to happen. We're going to just on them. And funny enough, I think yesterday during the preview, someone said, it must have been Louis said, what's our biggest issue? And someone said in our preview show, falling behind early. We don't really do that a lot, and that could be. And that's what happened. We fell behind early, and we fought and fought, and finally got that goal in a 90 plus 3 or 4 minutes. But that's our biggest issue. But again, moments, and that beginning of the game, so much different. And then obviously they then come down and get the goal you'll get into too. But yeah, if Pateta scored, it's a different game.
Indeed. And I think it's interesting. You do sometimes get this kind of sort of clash of philosophies, right? So one of the things Glasner's done really well with us is he's kind of drilled into the team. It's not, you don't panic. Like, you play the game as we've agreed we're going to play the game. If you do all the things right, you've got a great chance of winning the match. And that's the philosophy we go with. I think sometimes that comes up against, when you're coming up against a team that has been a truly awful Premier League team in Southampton, they weren't awful today. They weren't. There were elements of what happened today that show you why they're down there, but they weren't awful. And a number of their players had, fantastic games. And they have gone ahead in game. I think they've lost the most points from being ahead, as you would
They
expect.
mentioned that. Yeah, they have. Yeah.
But they're not. They're not. It's not like they just can't win games. They can't see them out. It's not like they're not got the players. There's some good players there. It's just they've got key weaknesses that we ultimately did exploit in the end. And I think, I'm seeing in the chat there right at the end that Alex has said we made them look good, and I think there's an element of that, but they made us look really, really bad, and they did it by pressing us. They gave absolutely everything they could, and we were half a second off. Every kind of pass, every kind of movement, it was just that little fraction, and that doesn't necessarily get shown up all the time, but it does when your opponent is half a second quicker than they usually are, because the two things combined, really, really do cause you problems. And I felt that looking at the passing, they knew the players to get close to and to press the most. They were really on Wharton every second. As the same, they tried to mark him out of the game. A lot of sort of rotational fouling of him, to the point where he had a long spells where he just wasn't around. As a sort of option for us. Meteta got really isolated in the first half, and we tried to correct it in the second half, but even then it was still harder. So Sarr struggled to get in the game, and you're going to know what I mean by this. They really rolled back the years. It was like watching when Birmingham had Kevin Francis up front. Do you remember? He was about 7 foot, Kevin Francis, and he was all right. He was no Crouchy with the touch, but he was okay. But it was like, we've got this absolute focal point, this big unit up top. We're just going to hit him, and we're also going to get crosses in, because guess what? If you get your really tall guy to stand on the shortest centre back, and you cross the ball in, he's going to get a header at goal. That's just going to happen, right? And real basic stuff. And Klein, you had Munoz one side, I think Klein with the other, or maybe Klein had gone wandering. I can't quite remember now. I need to see it back, but I know he was on the back post when he scored, and it was just a simple ball in. So they did some simple things well, and they worked really, really hard, and we just couldn't match that for a large proportion of the game. But when a team does that, they tire, don't they? And that's really what our tactic was supposed to be today. It was see it out, defend properly. And when they tire from this effort that they're going to put in, you absolutely that's when you turn the screw. And we did that. 85 minutes on the clock. Suddenly we look like Palace again, until the end of the game. But we still got very much out of jail with that France goal.
Yeah, and someone mentioned in the chat, I think it was Gaika, right? Yesterday was France's birthday, so he's had a baby, had a birthday yesterday, and he scored the goal. He's had one hell of a last 2 or 3 weeks, but that's a great point.
There you go.
But no, you're right, Hambo. And then there was a point. It was in the chat also that Mateta had a great turn and shot that Ramsey made a great save on, which again, moments that changed the game. But you're right on that goal. It was disappointing to see, Klein on such a tall striker. But again, you're right. Sulemana, Fernandez were very good today. Downs in midfield was very disruptive. And Walker Peters, they used the right side a lot. It wasn't even Manning, it was the right side. Walker Peters all day, up and down, getting balls in. He was at the end, he was killing Chilwell at the end, by the way. But yeah, I mean, and that's a great point, David. Listen, I got no problem with Chilwell, but honestly, based on what I've seen so far, I don't really want to hear people say, well, you can actually say it, but I'm not going to agree with you, that he should play with Mitchell, because honestly, Chilwell's got nothing. I mean, it could be again lack of playing time, which is fine, but today he looked really poor today. I mean, I know we were chasing the game and he was part of that, but I thought that Mitchell played a really good game, and I think Chilwell did well at all today. But
yeah. Well, you're looking for a player like him with the experience he's got, the quality he's undoubtedly got, to come into that and change it. You talk about him as a player, and he was kind of like, well, he's much more of the wing back than Mitchell. That was the kind of expectation that we had, and whether that was fair or not, you decide for yourselves. But that was the expectation. So bringing him on for Mitchell was like taking off the slightly more defensive left wing back and putting on an attacking left wing back. But what we actually had was a guy who was he seemed lost. He was trying to get on the ball, couldn't get on the ball, trying to make a challenge, like you say, getting run ragged. And Walker Peters is one of those players where I see him against us, and I just think
He's a world
yeah,
beater.
yeah. But then I wonder, because I remember there used to be a thing that Wilf used to get, and people used to love sharing it on Twitter, like threads of clubs who were saying, "Oh, Wilf's turned up this week. It's against us. It's always just against us." And
And
every
that's
club
him.
said it every week, and I do wonder if he gets that, but it does feel like he's the best wing back in the country when he plays us, because he just tore us apart time and again on that side. And so Mitchell actually did really well defending up against him, but the overload gave us problems. It meant that the midfield got dragged a bit. It meant that Eze was trying to track back as much as he could. And again, that's when you think about the best way to play against Palace, it really is to overload us out wide and stop us being dangerous in those areas. Munoz, same on the other side, was largely absent today and had a poor game. And it's because he couldn't do what he normally does. People you're struggling when the distances between players are bigger than they usually are, and that's
Yeah.
what really happened today.
Yeah.
It's hard to see how you can isolate everybody in our system, but we managed it, and again, bit of discipline, and a bit of calmness, and you can kind of play your way through that once your opponent sort of calms down a bit. But that didn't really happen today.
Yeah. And I'm trying to pick out, obviously I think that France was a definite positive today. It was difficult because I got a couple of texts today about, well, maybe he should have rotated more, he being Glasner. But honestly, Chilwell didn't do well when he came on. Kamada was okay. Devaney came on very late. You can't really count him. Like who could we? Nketiah had a really nice snapshot, but I would much rather have seen Mateta obviously play, and then Nketiah which way did come on late. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I do agree we could have rotated the squad a little bit more, but I'm just trying to think of the players that we could have rotated for who really had
Yeah,
impact today. Because Hughes, as somebody said in the chat, Hughes was a big miss today.
yeah,
Not having
huge.
Hughes
Yeah,
in there was a big miss.
yeah, this is a huge game, right? You don't get bullied in midfield, and you don't get Wharton having to make silly challenges,
Silly
and
challenges,
and and
exactly.
because that's not his game. But he was frustrated today, really dejected when he came off actually towards the end of the game, because it had just been one of those matches where he had no time on the ball, and he didn't have a Hughes next to him protecting him. And we talked about Lerma against Fulham having an absolutely fantastic game. Very ordinary today for a lot of it until he pops up with a key assist. And I don't mean to be mean. Like he was still decent. Again, was he one of our better performers? I probably have to watch the whole thing again to be sure, because I was extremely bored through lots of it, and
Yeah,
maybe not being
yeah.
completely objective. But it felt to me like he wasn't quite on it like a number of the other players. And I just think if I was going to say one thing, I don't think you can rotate when you're missing Chris Richards and you're missing Will Hughes. I think those are two big misses at the moment. And I know we've only just saying that about Richards now because he's only, got that run in the team. But I think those two players available gives you just a little bit more flexibility elsewhere in the team. People might point to saying, well, start França, but you don't really at the moment. The kid's been out a year. This is how he's being managed now. As much as we want to get excited and we want to see him play, this is how you manage him. What happened today has done him a world of good. Saying in the press the other day that he's come on leaps and bounds in the last few weeks, that's how you do it. You bring the level up, you bring the confidence up, and it's so I'm with you there. I don't know what you rotate. I just think it's again it's natural that if you're going to play a Saturday and then play a Wednesday, it's going to be fatigue, but there's not too many changes we could make. So maybe only one I would say, Lerma drops into that back three straight away as the Richards replacement, and again you look in midfield and you get somebody like Kamada in there, but you then have to say, is that going to have performed better from minute one against a side that just ran and ran and ran and needed to be tracked and needed to be tackled? Is Kamada that guy in the centre of midfield? Is Justin Devaney that guy in the centre of midfield? I'm not so
Right.
sure. I think we had to go with what we did.
Yeah, and the Richards miss was a big miss because again, the goal comes from a cross, great ball by Fernandez, by the way. But normally, well, look what happened on Saturday. That's Richards there clearing that ball, and it's
Yeah,
a poor Klein in there. Poor being short, not being poor, being playing poor by Klein. Do you know what I mean? So that's a difference right there. And if he's there, Onuachu doesn't get that free header because we all know how
yeah,
good Richards is in the air. So you're right. That's the big. And again, if you're going to rotate the squad with Richards and Hughes out, it's a conundrum because again, who do you take out? And then if you do that, what does that hurt you in other places? It's not as easy as saying, "Oh, just rest four guys" because they were leggy from Saturday. I get that,
mm,
but the Richards and Hughes thing made it a little more difficult than it could have been. So
definitely. Sort of in the theme of some of the comments that have been coming in as well, I think you're I suppose you're allowed to have a bad game, right? That
of
happens.
course, yeah,
And I understand that it's frustrating when it's Southampton. Let's be honest, it's Southampton. But you know, we've talked about the reasons why they had to play the way they did, and why it was almost pressure off for them, really, to some degree. They got absolutely nothing to lose. But it is important not to sort of get carried away because you're going to still have bad games, and I think it also does highlight. We getting really excited. You think in a way, I'm kind of almost glad the away game winning streak without conceding is gone, because it starts to become this thing that's too much of a focus even for the players. They keep reading
yeah.
about it. People keep mentioning it. It's not important. It's not important whether we concede or not. We are hard to score against at times. Majority of the time, we're scoring in almost all of our games. That's the positive thing. That's what you focus on. Sorry, my dog is growling. Shush. Um, at a cat. That's my life. But I think when you think about the fact that we're talking about Chris Richards and we're talking about Will Hughes as being key misses for this squad, that first of all feels a bit weird. If you go back a year or two, feels a bit weird that you're saying that, and that's a credit to them, and also shows you the transformation we've had. But it also shows you that we actually have real work to do. Forget who we might lose in the summer. We've got a considerable amount of work to do to get the kind of characters and the kind of commitment, that we get from that type of footballer, and have that across the squad. You need experience. Okay, you need a bit of nous in a game like this, and you can't throw all your wonderful attacking young players into a game like this against Southampton and expect to get a different result. And I just think it was. If you don't mind, I do think it's worth mentioning Kleiny today. I felt a little sorry for him. He's not really featured majority of the season, has he? He's played very little football, not quite as little football as Wardy, but he was back on the bench today. But yeah, he looked a little off the pace today. You concerned that that's maybe takes him off the table as an option at the back there?
I think it could. I think the biggest issue is, things like today when you're playing against a team with a tall striker and you're putting balls in the box. Can he cope with that? And also, on the ball, he always looks to kind of go sideways and backwards. And I think a lot of times today, Southampton kind of noticed that and we're pressing him, kind of like they used to press Richards. They weren't really pressing Lacroix and Gahey. So that's a thing that could be an issue. It might be that when Hughes is fit, and I thought Lumber did a good job at centre back. You put Lumber back there. Lumber's excellent in the air. He's a bit of a better on the ball player. You might do that, but again, it also might be you just say he hasn't played. Now I'm looking now. I'm trying to find the last time he started a match, and that would have been Stockport, right? FA Cup, January. It's a
Yeah,
long
there you
time
go.
ago.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. So again, he comes on a lot. He comes on a lot, but I don't think I don't think I don't want to blame him for anything. I just think that it was obviously a matchup issue. And again, someone mentioned in the chat. Yes, you're right. In the chat, it does come from an Eze poor flick, which is probably why the quart is non Onuachu because he was all game. But
Mhm.
again, it is what it. But I mean, we can't be killing. There's a lot of negative comments in the chat about Klein and today. I don't think today they'd be killing Klein. He hasn't played in a long time, so.
No, no. Again, yeah. I'm glad you understand the intention wasn't to sort of kill him for
Yeah, yeah,
playing today. It's absolutely just to highlight and say, well, look, I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking when we talk about what the team we are, we're talking about trying to keep Glasner. We're trying to keep our best players if we can, try and kick on and be challenging for those, beyond the top 10, pushing ourselves as high as we can to maybe sneak into European places and try and get that on a consistent basis. You're not going to do that if you don't recognize when you have to refresh the squad and you have to move it. And really the question was, when we look at that today and we look at how Klein was unfortunately exposed a little bit, that's probably not, we don't want realistically to look at the bench and have Ward and Klein as defensive options, and unless we're down to bare bones, and we're not. So I think it shows you that the work we need to do in the summer on this squad, and I appreciate that Riyad's injured, but when you consider what might happen in the summer as well, we've got to get a fair few players in, so we're not in a position where we have to have the bad game against Southampton and end up getting a point very, very late on.
Right. So this is an interesting comment here, which I agree with, from Samuels. The expectation of victory goes to show how far we've come. And you mentioned before about, I'm actually also glad that whole unbeaten streak, well, not unbeaten, no, it's still unbeaten, but the winning streak away is gone, because expectation is very high. And I get people are probably looking at, okay, today, Bournemouth lost, Brighton lost, Brentford lost. Yesterday, Fulham lost. So we picked up points on them, but we could have picked up an extra 2 points. So there's a whole thought about, can we get back into the top 10, etc. But again, we've come a long way, because again, it's like we're playing a team again had nothing to lose today, and they played like it. And we again came off 3 days ago. 4 days ago, we had a massive game in a semi-final, a quarter-final game to get to the semi-final, and a lot of the same players were playing again today. So they were obviously going to be tired, emotionally, and weren't necessarily up for it. And again, I mentioned in the preview yesterday, the one thing that you have to worry about today is a very emotional Southampton team playing man for man and just pressing the hell out of us and winning the 50-50 balls and the second balls. And that's what happened today. But credit to us, we found the way to get the point. Had it been a loss, I understand all the negativity in the chat, but I'm not going to go for the negativity today, because we got a point at least. I mean, again, it's going to be tough, and I understand people are saying, but again, it's a point, and honestly, I'll take it right now.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and you know what it's like on game day when you're dealing with it. Especially, look, I'm not going to hide from it. I watched the match today. I was bored as hell. It was horrible. It really was. But I
agree.
I have the perspective of being like, but this is kind of the first time I've felt this way in a long time. About watching Palace. I haven't been bored by Palace a lot recently, and that is a privilege, because I've been bored by Palace many times for many years. Yeah. So you just have to give it a little bit of leeway and say, you're brilliant to point that out. Of course, Bournemouth struggling today, and Brentford and everybody,
Brighton lost.
Brighton, most important one, but
most important, exactly, yeah.
But those results happen not every week, but you know what I mean, all the time. You look at it and you think, a form team playing a rugby, it happens. Of course it happens. Southampton picked up 9 points from somewhere this season. I know it's not great, but they still did. Yeah. 10 points now. So so it happens. They're gonna get opportunities, and we talked about it right at the start, Patrick. It's fine lines, fine margins. Games swing on really fine margins. We cannot hide from the fact that today was a bad performance. But
agree.
And I think probably for the first time today, it's also fair to say, we had a bad 45 minutes, and then when we came out in the second half, it was just more of the same, and that doesn't happen too often. And Glasner didn't wait that long before making significant changes. And again, as much as there's probably a little bit of criticism due for the fact that we didn't play so well, the coach has to bear some of that as much as the players, and we also have to give Southampton some credit. But I think credit is due to Glasner for making the changes he did, timing them when he did. I don't think any of the substitutions made us worse. I think it was borderline at a few points when we're getting a little bit sloppy and lost a little bit of rhythm. But I think France has come on. He's been bigged up. He just showed everything that you want to see in an attacking player. He didn't let the occasion, and the fact that we've been playing awful when he was probably bored watching it on the sidelines, didn't let that impact him at all. He came on, he ran way too hard, tried way too many things too quickly.
Yeah.
But he eventually did find some rhythm, and sometimes that's all it actually takes as well. Going back to one of the that wonderful interview Louis did, didn't he, with Scannell? It reminds me of Sean Scannell a little bit, because when he came into the team and was thrown in there, it was just running at people, and it was just enthusiasm. Don't get me wrong, not diminishing his talent, very, very talented footballer, made a big difference for us. But when he came into the team, we were boring as hell, and we just didn't have a spark. And he sparked us, and it's just reminiscent of that. When you bring a player in who's got some pace, and he's not really that interested in defending, is he, França? He wants to get on the ball and he wants to run at defenders, and we like that at Palace, don't we? We like a player who wants to get on the ball and run at defenders, so that feels good.
Yeah. You made a point earlier about the comments made by Glasner about França, and again, I'm not going to go back to last year, but I kind of have to. It's such a difference that you have a manager that is going to, you know, say something positive about a young player, give him, because again, kid's been through a lot. He changed countries, came here, got injured last year. He was out for almost an entire year. I think he got injured early in Glasner's tenure last year. Tried to come back, was injured again. Finally gets in again. Had a great Marbella trip, and then again, like I said, had a child, had a birthday, and then again scores a goal. I mean, I'm so happy for that kid. Again, you could talk about the game all you want and analyze it. I just think about again. I am just extremely happy for that kid scoring a goal, because that's his first goal or assist for Palace ever. I mean, in a real match, obviously for the Ham Cam game. So I'm really happy for that kid. I don't know how you can't be, because again, it's been rough for that kid. And the times talk about, he wants to go back to Brazil, and why he put all that money on that kid, and it's a joke that he has a Ballon d'Or clause, all this other stuff. But it's great to have the kid come into a game and actually impact it and get and help us get a point. I mean, I'm so happy for that kid. It's by far the best part of what happened today. I'm not gonna hide from that fact at all. So
yeah, exactly. And you have to take that. And we're going to end pretty soon because both of us got stuff to go do. But again, I like to leave that thought, that we have a really wonderful moment where we got to see a player who's had a really hard time. I got distracted by the comment about that Brazilian lad come up, but yeah, you're making that point, Patrick, in your roundabout way, without using words. You were comparing.
I did not use that word exactly.
I'm just but look, I can remember the discussion about França when we signed him, and knowing the scouting that was done, knowing the time and energy and effort that went into looking into what he was as a footballer and what he could bring. And everybody who was involved in that process, I can say for certainty, was aware that it was potential we were buying, but it was potential that was believed in. It was potential that would need time to be nurtured. And I don't doubt that, when he was out injured for a year, that he had some bad times and some dark moments where he felt, he missed his home and he missed his family and friends and things like that, and probably did feel maybe a little homesick or something like that. But when you have somebody going through a tough time, it's just about making sure that the club, the people around them sort of rally. And you can see he is liked and respected in that squad. You can see that everybody was so happy for him, and that will just change everything for him. He'll go on from here and he'll win that Ballon d'Or. There you go.
Exactly. 100%.
Not this season, probably next season.
Probably not this year, I would say. It's unlikely, but again, he's got a goal. He's got
a goal.
It's got a goal.
Yeah. And 9 more games to get more. So let's see if he gets 4 again. Anyway, I'm not going to do the math. Let's end it there. Thank you, everybody, and I hope that helped. Certainly helped me put some perspective on it, and I got to share how bored I was. That was the main thing. I feel better now. How about you, Patrick?
No, appreciate you jumping on. I know you're busy, Hambo. So we will have a play ratings. Louis and I will do one tomorrow. We'll be dropping that, and we got the big Brighton preview coming up for this weekend with D and the crew. So look out for that. But we thank everyone for joining today. Short show, but we got a point. And as we used to say in the old days, respect the point.
Damn right.
Up the Palace. Up the Palace.
Thanks all. Up the Palace.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.